Good news. Dave Smith and his partner in crime here are talking economics, and I'm here for it. But he starts off with logical errors.
Like, hey, we don't do that. We don't contradict ourselves in these ways. We believe in private property rights and laissez-faire government. We're being very clear on what it is we believe in, and they are not. And that's frustrating.
Oh, yeah, but you yourself had a logical contradiction right there. You want a government that is both big and small, a government that protects your property rights, your private property rights. Well, that's a big, intrusive government. You want a government that can protect your contracts from everyone that might not be true to the contracts they sign with you, but a government just small enough that it cannot enforce any of your responsibilities to the group. Having your cake and eating it too. That's one error, but the bigger logical error comes next. It's a false choice.
The real debate here that we're having is whether the system of taxation at the threat of violent imprisonment, whether that is a better system than voluntary exchanges between people.
And you see what he's doing here. He's putting everything good in the free market and everything bad in the government bin. He's comparing apples and oranges, good free market stuff with bad government stuff. You could swap the examples. You could say that an example of the government is a volunteer firefighter force, and an example of the free market is Bernie Madoff. This is just not logically consistent. It's analogous to comparing baseball players to football players. So you compare Roberto Clemente and his character to O.J. Simpson and his character, and your conclusion is that baseball players are all great and football players all aren't. That's just not a fair comparison. And then Dave Smith continues.
The matter of human liberty and dignity and prosperity, all of these things can only be found in a system of freedom.
So everything good, everything profitable, we're just going to declare that to be libertarianism, and everything that's bad, that's the government. And when you're talking about freedom, you're probably talking about freedom from regulations. Your partner laments.
But when the number of regulations rise, when it used to take 410 days to build the Empire State Building in 1933, it now takes 410 days for me to find a permit to put an expansion on my small house here. This is the heart of why democratic socialism is terrible. We get less cooperation, less wealth, and lower standards of living.
Okay, over the last 100 years, we've got more regulation. Fact check true. But then
the time prices of accessing products and services has drastically decreased in the last 100 years. Tylenol, Dayquil, computers, LASIK eye surgery, water bottles, printers, paintings, books, televisions, all of these things.
Wow, so get this, you can have regulations and prosperity together. Next, things get heated.
These fuckers every week should be celebrating the drastic decrease in absolute poverty that the human race has experienced in the last 100 years.
Amen, brother.
All right, prosperity is good. The question, how do you get it? And here, Dave Smith again resorts to that false choice.
We believe these things should be provided voluntarily on the market, and you are arguing for statism. Like that's the core of the disagreement here.
Okay, fine. How about a couple examples? Here are the two they choose.
You'd think they'd be very appreciative of the Jeff Bezoses of the world for giving people more access to books than anyone else, for Steve Jobs innovating the computer and saying, well, at least that was a really good thing. He really empowered the average member of the working class.
And yeah, those were two talented people, two rewarded people, and the government had a huge role to play there. Government roads, government ports, government satellites, government wires and cables, and government research all did a whole lot, not everything, but a whole lot to make their success possible. So don't tell us.
Clearly, it's all about the government should do more in all of these areas.
Because the government did a whole lot for Bezos and Jobs. They did plenty. We just want to make sure the government is working for everybody. That is not too much to ask. And we're still talking about logical errors here, so
I believe that human beings are inherently self-interested. Compare the thought of someone who passed away in your life that you cared about, take one person, and compare your emotions with how you feel about that one person to the 500,000 deaths that took place during the Crimean War.
All right, that's not how human emotions work.
If people weren't self-interested, they'd get 500,000 times as sad about those as they would about this one. Thank God we're self-interested, or we wouldn't be able to operate.
Again, that's not how feelings work. We try to make policies based on logic. And yeah, this is a good anti-war argument saying that every single one of those lives is as important as the ones that are closest to us. But I'm struck here because he's telling you how you have to feel to be logically consistent, and he's trying to like prove something, but all he's really proving is he doesn't really know how humans are. And okay, 2 cheers for self-interest, but just because you are interested in yourself, which is a good thing, doesn't mean you should be hoping other people fail. The next error, though, is really strange.
One thing we can say in their favor is being rich almost necessarily meant you were evil for the vast majority of history.
That's so crazy, we must repeat it.
Being rich almost necessarily meant you were evil for the vast majority of history because the only way to acquire large amounts of wealth and resources was theft.
All right, that's just false. Good kings, successful shepherds and farmers, good extended family patriarchs, good kings are possible. Loving fathers do exist, so nobody knows what you're talking about here.
You are arguing for an institution which is predicated on the initiation of violence.
And that's again, just wrong. Parents are the most local form of governments. Parents have responsibility over the family, just like a mayor has a responsibility over the city that he or she leads, just like the tribal chief has a responsibility over a different size group, a duty to that people, a duty to restrain and to discipline their charges for their own good, for everybody's good.
You are arguing for an institution which is predicated on the initiation of violence. This is an institution that says we will throw you in a cage and kill you if you resist. This is a law. There's a gun behind this opinion, whereas in the market, it's voluntary transactions with people's individual property.
Well, that's just not true. Yeah, good things are good, bad things are bad. Bad fathers exist, and bad fathers exist because they're failing their responsibility, their obligation. This is crazy. This is as crazy as saying that all men are guilty of abuse. And the proof is because some people are guilty of abuse, but that's just not true. In fact, we have a responsibility not to abuse. You can't tell a kid he has a responsibility to fly, flap your arms and fly because you can't fly, but you can, and you have a responsibility not to abuse. A false comparison because, hey, have you noticed private people also have guns? And if you're talking about reality here, statistics, I was looking them up. I think it's something like 40,000 shootings every year. These are non-self-harm events, and about 3,000 of those are officer involved. So you are more than 10 times more likely to suffer violence. Don't tell me the state has a monopoly on violence. It's just not true. More than 10 times as likely to be hurt by somebody else. Oh, and hey, Dave, I know you're talking about you're going to protect your own private property. Well, let's say that your neighbor's building a fence onto your land. You go down and tell him not to do it. You tell him again, you yell at him. Pretty soon you're going to, we're not crazy people here. You're not going to get your clan together and go attack his clan. You're going to take it to the authorities, and they're going to, what are they going to do? They're going to take out pieces of paper. They're going to take out deeds. You're going to take it to the wise old men of the village, or at least somebody down at City Hall with not much more to do, that's what the government does. They keep records of these things. It's a big government thing because sometimes well-meaning people disagree about stuff. Well, what are you going to do about it then? You're just going to fight to see out who's the top dog? No, because we're civilized. All right, another logical error, another error he has here.
Look, the labor theory of value is just objectively wrong. It's been disproven. It's the clouds cause viruses. It's not. It's germs. There's a different answer. That's not what's creating the value. This can be demonstrated and logically proven.
And I'm sorry, yes, labor does create value. It doesn't determine or set the price, but labor does. Look it up. Type in the definition of labor in economics. Labor is what creates value.
Socialism is destroyed by that because their entire worldview here, which is just, again, objectively wrong, is that essentially the worker is creating the value with their labor. Now, if that were true, then in a sense, they've got a little bit of a case because you would go, yeah, you're going into work You're bringing in you're creating $15 an hour of value, and your employer's only paying you 10. His job is just to sit there and siphon off the excess value that you created by working.
I don't think anyone has a problem with the example that you chose. Yeah, managers, owners, they serve a legitimate purpose, and taking 1/3 of the created value sounds reasonable to me, but sometimes it's 2/3. Sometimes it's 99%, sometimes it's 100%. And when that happens, when the owner who does none of the work takes 100% of all the excess gain, that is usury, that's theft, that's wrong. And governments can and should and must play a role in policing that. And once again, labor does create value. It does not set prices. It does not set wages either. Hey, speaking of wages,
why doesn't everyone make the minimum wage? Why is such a small percentage of the workforce make the minimum allowed wage?
And according to some financial people, everyone does or everyone should be paid the minimal possible wage in order to keep them showing up to the office. Why? Because wages, that's a form of cost for the business, and the business needs to maximize profit all the time, and labor is a cost. That's one view. It's a wrong view. It's a wrong focus. Again, focusing only on property, not on human beings and rights. The right of the human to the fruit of his or her labor, to housing, dignity, and family.
And that's that. Somebody else can come in and do this. That's why you're not worth more money. I mean, it's just like, look, if you are a minimum wage worker, then no, you're not the one producing all of the value who everybody else is ripping off. You are replaceable. Get your skills up. Sorry, this is real life, and that's how things get produced and how things work.
Well, that's good advice to someone trying to get ahead, but trying to get ahead of whom? People working full-time and still homeless, still not able to find safe, secure housing?
Get your skills up.
Our system is built on making sure that some people suffer, and in order to keep other people running faster on the hamster wheel. That's a choice that we make. It's a bad choice. It's not a necessary choice.
You are replaceable.
Homeless children.
Get your skills up.
Homeless children.
Sorry, this is real life, and that's how things get produced and how things work.
All right, now back to the main problem with Dave Smith's argument.
The difference between our economic policy simply is that they believe in the government and I don't.
But we're starting here with something on which we agree.
What works is people voluntarily interacting. What doesn't work is war and destruction and violence and aggression.
Yeah, that happens when the market is free. And you know who makes it free and keeps it free? The sovereign. Fraudsters and counterfeiters are kept out of the marketplace. Thieves and bankers are put on notice. So we have a safe, clean, mutually profitable, voluntary exchange place, and hooray for all of that. And thank you to the sovereign for making it possible. The marketplace is not some state of nature. And I can prove it to you. Look at what's in your pocket. What's in your pocket is money with pictures of the sovereign on it, guaranteeing, vouching for the value of that unit of exchange in order to make that exchange so convenient that all this mutual benefit can happen. And that, my friend, is a valuable service. And if the boss of the factory has a valuable service, well, then the sovereign also is performing a valuable service there and has a right to some recompense for it. And you might want to call that taxation. And yet,
I don't want to chip in for the education system. I think the state healthcare system is a complete joke. The courts are not doing a good job, so I'm not going to chip in property taxes. Do you have the right to use violence against me if I don't chip in for those?
Yeah, me. I don't know violence here. I don't want any violence whatsoever. But if you're talking about sending you a bill or confiscating some money from your bank account, yeah, absolutely, because you have responsibility. I know libertarians hate hearing that, but yeah, you have a responsibility to your family, a responsibility to your home, to the group that sustains you. And I have those responsibilities too. And yeah, I certainly don't want any violence, but it's not violence to be reminded of your responsibility.
If I resist them, they'll kill me in front of my kids. So you better be damn sure that you're willing to use violence against me.
No, nobody wants that. And if you don't know, I think he's referring here to the Ruby Ridge crime, which was terrible. And nobody wants that repeated. But in all honesty, how many examples like that can you point to from the from the last 50 years, speaking not exactly about law in America, but philosophically about what the sovereign can do. The sovereign doesn't start with violence. He starts with boycotting, saying, you refuse to participate in the marketplace under our rules. Okay, well then, we refuse to buy and sell with you. And the sovereign can confiscate or cancel contracts. You wanted the sovereign to protect contracts that are worth protecting. Well, if you can protect things that are worth protecting, you can cancel things that are worth canceling. And all I'm saying is there are many tools short from the gross violence that they seem preoccupied with. The only example they can think of, that is not the only tool available to the sovereign.
I have a house. We said, we accept that I own my house. We accept, in the same sense as you said, that nobody else can take it, right? Only the government. But okay, like if I don't pay my property taxes, or if I don't pay my taxes, or I don't pay what they will come for this house. They will come for what I have. They will come for me eventually and throw me in jail. And I also, by the way, I got a fair amount of weaponry here at this house. And if I simply do nothing else but defend myself and say, I'm not going, they will kill me in front of my children. They will murder me in front of my children. Like that is what you support. That's the system you support.
All right, that's a scary story, but are you talking about truth here? It's true. There are tax foreclosures, 10 to 20,000 every year in America. There are about 40 to 50,000 bank foreclosures and 1 million evictions, where the landlord says that I want to raise the rent, or you're not keeping up with rent. That's up to 8% of all renters have some sort of eviction legal process instituted against them every year. So yeah, 10,000 tax foreclosures, nobody's celebrating that. 1 million evictions. And you know what those are, Dave? You know what those are? They are the government protecting your private property with guns. If the people refuse to leave, then yeah, with guns. And they use all the gross examples that you want to bring up. Remember how you started off talking about logical fallacies?
Like, hey, we don't do that. We don't contradict ourselves in these ways. We're being very clear on what it is we believe in, and they are not. And that's frustrating.
I'd say you're committing some of those logical fallacies. Violence is bad. No one wants violence. It's much more likely to come from private marketplace confederates, like other people, other individual citizens, rather than the government. Evictions are much more likely to be instituted by, again, your neighbor in the marketplace rather than your government. And speaking of the government, I repeat myself, but it has a responsibility to rule well. And because it has that responsibility, which we understand, fathers have a responsibility to parent well. And because we have that responsibility, it must be possible